Okay, last week we were talking about tefillin, the various different aspects of tefillin, the importance of tefillin. Okay, so we were discussing a little bit, what age do kids put on tefillin? So the accepted custom today is bar mitzvah, obviously. In certain places, like in Chabad, we start 2 months before bar mitzvah. The first few weeks, basically a month without a bracha, then we put on with a bracha. But in Shulchan Aruch itself, it says when a kid is mature enough to know how to behave properly in tefillin, meaning he knows not to sleep in tefillin, he knows not to pass gas in tefillin, he knows not to burp in tefillin, he knows how to be respectful in tefillin. So technically, he would be allowed to put on tefillin. In fact, there were places, not done today, but there were places they started putting on tefillin at 12. Some did it 2 years before bar mitzvah. Many people put it on only at bar mitzvah, not before. So a lot of different customs about when you could put on tefillin. Okay.
What if a kid desires?
Just because a kid desires doesn't mean he has to get whatever he wants. I mean, he's not allowed to put on tefillin if he wants to.
I think the version put it by the Thursday before the Chabad.
Again, there's a lot of different customs. Some people say orphans put it on a year earlier, memory of the father. But again, it's not done like that. Okay, now, the next thing is a practical thing about the mitzvah of buying tefillin and the concept of what's called Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. Now, there's an argument in the Rishonim. We know that the 4 parshias, the 4 portions of the Torah that speak about tefillin, are inside the tefillin. Now, the head tefillin, as you notice, has 4 compartments. If you open up a head tefillin, you'll see there's actually 4 compartments inside, which there are 4 parshias of Torah. Then you have the shalyad, is not compartment into 4. So in the shalyad, you have a long piece of parchment that all the 4 parshias are written on one piece of parchment. But there's a big argument in the Rishonim, what is the order of the parshias? Does it go one way, another way? And according to each one, the other way is not kosher. Okay? You put it in the different order of the way they maintain it's supposed to be. So then it's mamish not kosher the tefillin. So the 2 people that they always talk about is Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam, even though the Rambam also says, like Rashi says, in the order of the parshias. Now it's interesting because Rashi was the grandfather and Rabbeinu Tam was his son, a grandson I mean. Rabbi Yaakov Tam was Rashi's daughter. Rashi had 5 daughters, he didn't have any sons. So Rabbeinu Tam, Yaakov Tam his name was, so he was the son of one of Rashi's daughters. So they tell a story, in fact, that he was sitting on his grandfather's lap when he was a little baby, and he took off his grandfather's Rashi's tefillin. This is the way the story goes. I never saw it printed, but this is what they say. And Rashi said, when he gets older, he's going to have his own way of putting on tefillin. So the difference really between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam is the order of the parshas, both in the hand one, because then again, you have all 4 parshas, but they have to be written in the proper order. So according to Rashi, it's one order. According to Rabbeinu Tam, it's a different order. It's the same thing with the Rosh. The Shorash, how you put it in the boxes. You know, you put it this way, this way, this way, or this way, this, whatever the different parshas, what you put. Now, what's interesting is, according to each one, like we said, the halacha, the other way is not kosher. So, generally speaking, it's brought down in Kabbalah, it's interesting. Halachically, the tefillin are like Rashi. Halacha is like Rashi's tefillin, that's the accepted opinion from amongst everybody. But nevertheless, it's brought down that people that are very religious, machmirim, should also put on Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. But there's an argument in halacha versus Kabbalah. In halacha, because halacha is like Rashi's tefillin are holier than Rabbeinu Tam. According to Kabbalah, Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin is Chochma, Rashi is Bina. So according to Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin, according to Kabbalah, Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin is holier than Rashi's tefillin. Now, what difference does it make? It's a very simple difference. There's a rule in halacha, you can only go up in kedusha, you don't go down. Ma'ilin b'kodesh ve'ein meridin. So what happens, I'll give you a simple example, even by Rashi's tefillin. We know the hand, as we said, is one box with the 4 parshias rolled up in it. The head tefillin has 4 boxes. Therefore, halachically, the head tefillin is holier than the hand tefillin, because it's 4 versus 1. So therefore, what happens if I want to change a strap from the hand tefillin to the head tefillin? So then I would be allowed to, because I'm going up in kedusha. But if I want to take a head strap and make it into a hand strap, then I wouldn't be allowed to, because I'm going down in kedusha, and you're not allowed to go down in kedusha. So now the question is like this: if I have, let's say, I have a strap from Rashi's tefillin, and I want to put it now as Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. So according to halacha, that the halacha is like Rashi, and therefore Rashi's tefillin are holier than Rabbeinu Tam's. So I would not be allowed to take a strap from Rashi's tefillin to use as Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin, because according to halacha, I'm going down from Rashi, which is holier, than Rabbeinu Tam, which is less holy. According to Kabbalah, I would be allowed to do it. But the same thing would be in reverse. What happens if I want to take a strap from Rabbeinu Tam and make it into Rashi? So according to halacha, I couldn't. According to halacha, I would be able to, because Rashi is holier. But according to Kabbalah, I wouldn't be allowed to do it. Therefore, what's the halacha bottom line? You can't do anything from Rashi to Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. Rashi is Rashi, Rabbeinu Tam is Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. There are also 2 more other sets of tefillin. They say that, I think the Vilna Gaon was, if I would put on all the pairs of tefillin, I would have to put on 70 pairs of tefillin a day, because there's so many different opinions how the tefillin should be. But there's 2 other pairs of tefillin also. One is called Ravid, and one is called Shimush Rabbah. The Ravid was one of the arguers on the Rambam, and Shimush Rabbah is also a Rishon. So it says that to put on those 4, you have to be very, very, very holy people. Okay, you have to be very holy people to put on 4 pairs of tefillin. According to many opinions, why people don't wear Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin is because it says you also have to be a holy person. So years ago, so like the Rebbe writes on himself, after people, he said, I was afraid to put on the 4 pairs of tefillin myself. I may have put on Rabbeinu Tam, but the previous Rebbe told him to put on the 4, and in fact he even bought them that nobody should suspect that the Rebbe is buying the 4 pairs of tefillin. So generally speaking, there's only very unique individuals that put on 4 pairs of tefillin. But even Rabbeinu Tam, when you put on Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin, so there's different opinions, or customs I mean. If you do it, when do you do it? So in the Chassidic world, because the Litvische world does not put on Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin, the Chassidic world, generally speaking, puts on Rabbeinu Tam when they get married. Because again, Rabbeinu Tam, they have to be holier, less thoughts and all that stuff, so they would wear it after they get married. When we were growing up in Chabad, the custom was that we put it on at 18. That was the Chabad custom. Not time we put it on. We used to go into the Rebbe every year for our birthday, for a bracha, like it was a 30-second yechidus, that we would go in for a bracha. So when we turned 18, this is the custom when I was growing up, when you turned 18, you went into the Rebbe for yechidus, so you would ask the Rebbe if you're turning 18, if you should start wearing Rabbeinu Tam's. And most of the time the Rebbe says, yeah, it's a good thing to do, you should put on Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. There are very few people, exception cases, that the Rebbe told them to start wearing Rabbeinu Tam's at Bar Mitzvah. But one year, the Rebbe spoke a Sicha of Purim, the Rebbe spoke a whole Sicha, because according to many opinions, you just don't put on Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. Well, you have to be, again, Rabbeinu Tam, according to Kabbalah, is holier than Rashi's. So the Rebbe spoke a Sicha and says, I know all those things about not putting them on. I'm asking that everybody should now start wearing Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin at Bar Mitzvah. So now they didn't ask even. The Rebbe said clearly he wants us to put on Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin starting from Bar Mitzvah. Not only do we put on Rabbeinu Tam's at Bar Mitzvah, but the 2 months before that we also put on Rashi's tefillin. We already start wearing Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. We already start wearing Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin together with the Rashi. So to now it's clear that the Rebbe wanted those people that are putting Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin should put on, I mean if they didn't, they start later, but otherwise they should start putting on at Bar Mitzvah. There was a story about 2 guys, I know them both, one's still alive. They were, Bochim came to the Rebbe from Australia, and they asked the Rebbe about putting on Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. So one had a pair and one didn't have a pair yet. So the guy that didn't have a pair asked the Rebbe if he should put on Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. So the Rebbe said yes, but wait until you get back to Australia because then you're traveling, you don't know what's going to be. So he told the Rebbe that I'm traveling with this other bacher and he has Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. So it's not a problem. So the Rebbe didn't reply to that, he just ignored the statement. But one thing, and let me just add something over here. It's not a yo-yo. One day yeah, one day not. Once you start putting Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin, it has to be put every single day. There's no such thing. Just like you have to put it on Rashi, you have to put it on Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. There's no such. So what happened is when they were going back, it wasn't like today's non-stop flights. They were stopping over. Anyway, on the way back, they got separated. So you guys started putting Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin in New York before they went back. On the trip back, they got separated. And he ended up a few days without Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. Then he understood why the Rebbe told him, wait until you get back to Australia to start wearing Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. So that's the story of Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin.
Why don't we say bracha to Rabbeinu Tam?
Because the halacha is like Rashi, and therefore when you make the bracha on Rashi, ideally, by the way, you're supposed to put on Rabbeinu Tam's right after Rashi's. It says right after Rashi's. Because the bracha of Rashi should also go for Rabbeinu Tam's. But even if you put it on later in the day for whatever reason, you don't make a bracha Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin.
What about the people that put 2 or 3 or...
That the Sephardic people, by the way, that put on 2 pairs at the same time, that's Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam.
But they have
But-
to put the Rashi first, right?
Yeah, but what a lot of Sephardim do, we don't do that. But what a lot of Sephardim that wear Rabbeinu Tam's, they have small tefillin, smaller tefillin. Because the Gemara says, Yesh Mokum Berosh, okay, you have to put tefillin here, right? You can't put it here and here. So how do you put 2 pairs of tefillin on the head? So the Gemara says, Yesh Mokum Berosh Laniach Shnei Zugi Tefillin. The Gemara says there's room in the head to put on 2 pairs of tefillin. So those that do, what do? They put one in the front and one right behind it. And that you have between, because the place of tefillin from here, to the middle of the head. So if you have small tefillin, you put them on. So they put on in the hand both pairs at the same time, and then they put on Rabbeinu Tam, one behind the next. Then there's a whole question, do you cover the Rab tefillin, do you not cover the head? The hand tefillin is supposed to be covered. The head tefillin is not supposed to be covered. But some people, according to Kabbalah, cover Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin partially, not partially, that's a whole separate discussion about covering the tefillin. The way most people is, the hand tefillin you can cover. In fact, if you ever noticed that when people put on tefillin and they make a bracha, they'll take their talis or their jacket and they'll cover the tefillin when they make the hand bracha. So why is that? So it's brought down in Poskim because it says, Ukshartum la'is should be for you a sign. So you a sign means it's for you. That's one of the reasons. There are other reasons also. But the head tefillin, it says, all the nations of the world will see that the name of God is called upon you. So the Gemara says that refers to tefillin sheberosh, the head tefillin. That means it should be vado, they should see it. So, but Kabbalistically, you're supposed to cover part of the tefillin. Anyway, so in our circles, when you wear your talis over the head, you cover part of the shorosh with the talis, but not all of it. But the hand is covered. To be continued.